Most men think dominance means being louder, tougher, more aggressive. They believe that raising their voice, puffing their chest, and constantly proving their worth will earn them respect. They think women will admire them if they impress, if they provide, if they perform. They're wrong. In today's world, real power doesn't scream. It doesn't chase. It doesn't ask for permission to exist. It simply is calm, steady, and undeniable. The man who truly holds power doesn't need to dominate the room. He doesn't need to win anyone over with grand gestures or forced charisma. Why? Because genuine strength speaks in silence. It's felt, not flaunted. The most powerful man isn't the one who controls others. It's the one who stands unshaken, who doesn't need to beg for connection, approval, or love. He doesn't get tested with silence or punished with guilt. He doesn't fold under emotional pressure or reshape himself just to keep a woman interested. Instead, remains grounded, centered in who he is. In relationships, the weak man gets used. He gets led, manipulated, and eventually replaced, not because women are cruel or calculating, but because nature itself tests what is soft and follows what is solid. It's instinctual. Like water seeking strong banks to hold its flow, people gravitate towards strength that doesn't need to announce itself. So this video isn't about manipulation. It's not about playing games or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about becoming a man who can't be bent out. A man who doesn't fear being alone because he knows his value. A man who no longer allows confusion to replace clarity, or desperation to disguise itself as love. If you're tired of overgiving, of being chosen then discarded, of never knowing where you stand, watch this till the end. Because, man, going to show you 5 Machiavellian rules for emotional and relational dominance, the kind that works whether you're single, dating, married, or rebuilding everything from the ground up. These are the kind of principles that women feel on a deep, instinctive level. Men can't help but respect. They don't just influence, they command. Let's begin with Rule 1. Speak less, watch more. Rule 1. Speak less. Watch more. More power belongs to the man who doesn't react. This is where most men fall, not because they speak, but because they speak too quickly. They rush to defend themselves, eager to explain or justify, and in doing so, they expose far too much. Every hasty response, every unfiltered explanation chips away at their authority. Why? Because it uncovers something dangerous. Emotional dependence. Niccolo Machiavelli warned us centuries ago, wrote that a prince must avoid being either hated or despised, and nothing makes a man more contemptible than inconsistency. Let's translate that into today's terms. Reactivity is weakness. Emotional discipline isn't just admirable, it's magnetic. Imagine this in your love life. A woman gives you the silent treatment. What do most men do? Panic. They text. They call. They plead. They try to fix it immediately. But that's exactly where the power slips. The man who flinches first loses instead. What if you did the opposite? What if you said nothing? What if you watched instead? Calmly, confidently, with quiet strength? The silence becomes your ally. You observe. You control your emotions. And in that stillness, you regain the frame. Because remember, the one who speaks less sees more.
Ow!
The one who watches more understands more. And understanding leads to control, not just of the situation, but of yourself. Let's apply that to your love life. A woman gives you the silent treatment. ... After an argument, most men panic. They send long emotional messages, call repeatedly, and even apologize for things they never actually did. They believe they're rescuing the relationship, but in truth, what they're doing is much more damaging. They're surrendering the frame. She tested your center. You responded in chaos, and in doing so, you showed her one undeniable truth: you didn't have one. Now, let's take that same dynamic and zoom out beyond romantic relationships. Picture yourself in a meeting. Coworker abruptly cuts you off mid-sentence. You react instinctively, you raise your voice, try to outtalk them, assert dominance by volume. But here's the brutal truth. That's the wrong move. The Machiavellian approach is entirely different. Let silence build like pressure in a sealed room. Let the stillness make them uncomfortable, not you. Then, when the time is right, speak. But speak slowly, sharply, with intention. Choose every word as if it were a weapon, because it is. Powerful men don't chase attention. They don't scramble to be heard. They command attention by contrast through presence, not noise. Machiavelli also warned, "He who builds on the people builds on mud." What does this mean in modern life? If your sense of control or confidence is built on other people's reactions, especially a woman's, you're on unstable ground. Sooner or later, it will crack beneath you. Here's a precise, actionable solution you can start using today. The next time a woman pulls back emotionally, don't rush to fill the silence. Don't panic, don't plead, and above all, chase, don't fill the silence. Don't chase the energy. No, hold your posture. Stay still, stay grounded. Observe quietly without flinching. Let her wonder what you're thinking, what you're feeling. Let her imagination do the work for you, because in that silence, in that stillness, mystery builds. And mystery is power. And then only then speak. But when you do, let your words be calm and brief. No long explanations, no desperate paragraphs, no attempts to win her over. Just one composed sentence. That's all it takes. Because a man who stays silent under pressure becomes the one no one can predict. And a man who can't be predicted, be controlled. Rule 2. Control the frame. Control the frame. Or be trapped inside hers. This rule separates leaders from followers in every kind of relationship. Why? Because people, especially women, don't respond to raw facts. They respond to the story they've already told themselves in their head. And once that story is in place, even your most sincere actions, even your most logical arguments, will be twisted, reinterpreted, misread. Machiavelli saw this clearly. He wrote, "Men in general judge more from appearances than from reality. All men have eyes, but few have the gift of penetration." He wasn't being cynical. He was revealing a timeless truth. Perception is power. And if you're not shaping that perception, someone else is, usually to your disadvantage. Let's bring this into relationships. You keep giving, keep adjusting, proving yourself, hoping she finally sees your worth. But here's the real problem. She already made up her mind. She's not analyzing your value anymore. She's interpreting your effort as overcompensation. You're trying too hard, and once that impression is formed, it's nearly impossible to undo. Once you've been framed as needy, even your strongest confidence starts to look like you're just trying to cover up insecurity. Yes. Even your acts of generosity are no longer seen as kindness, they start to look like guilt. Now flip it. You say less, you move slower. You speak only when it matters, and you walk away when something doesn't serve you, and something strange begins to happen. She starts assigning you powerful traits you never had to explain. You didn't have to brag. You didn't have to prove, she just feels it. Words like mysterious, grounded, high dash value. Why? Because you controlled the frame before ever trying to influence the outcome. You set the context, then let the story unfold. That's real power, and it doesn't stop at relationships. In everyday life, this principle plays out exactly the same. Two men walk into a room. One says nothing at first. He's calm, well-dressed. His energy is composed, controlled. He watches more than he speaks. People feel something around him presence. They assume status before he says a single word. Then there's the other man. He's trying. He talks too much. He explains before being asked. He wants to be seen, but it shows. And even if he has more ... skills, yet he's perceived as insecure. Same man, same facts, but a different frame. Machiavelli put it best, everyone. Sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. He wasn't encouraging deception. He was warning you about reality. So the goal isn't to fake anything. The game is to reveal strategically. Here's a clear move you can begin using immediately to shift the frame in your favor. Stop chasing admiration. Stop trying to prove yourself to be enough. Don't force the evidence. Instead, let presence do the work. Appear with purpose. Speak only with intention. Withdraw when necessary, not as punishment, but as power. And then let her fill in the blanks, not with information you've dumped on her, but with imagination you've sparked in her mind. Because here's the truth, most men never grasp. A man who doesn't beg to be seen often becomes the most unforgettable, and in a world shaped and ruled by perception. That's how you win without noise. Rule 3. Win her mind. First win her mind before you even try to win her heart. Why? Because attraction begins in the mind. Before it ever becomes emotional or physical. If she doesn't respect your mental clarity, she'll never remain loyal to your emotional investment, no matter how deeply you feel. Most men get this backward. They try to win women by overgiving emotionally. They flood her. Certainly. Here's the expanded and refined version of your content in English, meeting your exact requirements. Original meaning preserved, expanded by approximately 10%, natural. Engaging tone with appropriate punctuation maintains 10% of the key phrases at the beginning and end for story continuity. Occasional rhetorical and vivid elements, without overuse with compliments. With affection, with long messages, men pour themselves out, thinking they're creating connection. But they forget one crucial truth. Her belief system shapes her attraction, not your emotional effort. You could write poems, send roses, type your heart out for hours, but if her inner narrative about men is already set, all your effort will be filtered through a lens she built long before you arrived. Machiavelli would never have wasted time charming someone who had already made up their mind. He didn't believe in convincing people, he believed in reading them. In fact, he said, the first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. It's translated to the modern world. Who you choose to surround yourself with, especially in relationships, reveals your judgment. That includes the beliefs you're willing to tolerate. Let's make that real. In your relationship, you message her all day. You send thoughtful gifts. Go out of your way to prove you're not like the other guys. Do you ever pause to ask yourself, what does she actually believe about men? Does she see men as weak, as replaceable, as dangerous or selfish? Does she truly desire love or just the validation that attention brings? Because if her core belief is, men always disappoint, then no message, no gesture, no outpouring of devotion will, change that. She admire your effort and still leave. Not because you lacked emotion, not because you didn't care, but because you lacked strategy. This is where so many men fail. They mistake sincerity for influence. But sincerity without precision is just noise. Let's look at it in everyday life. Imagine you're at a family dinner. You're trying to explain your new business idea to your cousin. You're confident it makes sense. You show the data. Results the roadmap. You're passionate, but still he doesn't budge. Why? Because he already believes you're not serious enough. That belief came before your evidence, and that's the hard truth. People don't move because of truth, they move because of what they already believe. Machiavelli knew this well. He once wrote, "Men are so simple and so obedient to present necessities that he who deceives will always find someone who will let himself be deceived." But here's the twist, that deception doesn't always come from others. It begins in the mind, in her mind, in your own. Because the game isn't played on the surface. It's played in perception, in the stories we accept as real. Rule: for see through her mask without triggering the guard. Every woman wears a mask. Sometimes it looks like confidence. Sometimes it looks like ... sarcasm, independence, coldness, control. These are the masks women sometimes wear. But underneath them, often a need for validation, a fear of rejection, a wound from the past she'd rather bury than reveal. She doesn't want you to see it, not because she doesn't feel, Because she's afraid of what you'll do if you do. Here's where most men fall into the trap. If you react to the mask, you lose. You'll end up arguing with her attitude instead of understanding her anxiety. You'll waste time defending yourself against her silence, instead of learning how to read her unspoken expectations. But if you can see through the masks calmly, quietly, you don't just win the moment. You gain leverage, quiet power, silent understanding, not by overpowering, but by outseeing, without war, without noise. Machiavelli witnessed this kind of subtle dynamic play out in every court, every kingdom, every elite circle of power. He wrote, "It is double pleasure to deceive the deceiver, not to hurt but to gain insight without exposing your hand." Let's break that down into something real. In a relationship, she says, do what you want. So you do exactly that thinking. She means it. Suddenly, she turns cold, distant, dismissive. What is that? It's not true indifference. It's camouflage detachment. She doesn't want to appear needy, so she hides her vulnerability. But deep down, she is affected more than she admits. The average man, he gets frustrated. He doesn't react. He doesn't chase. He doesn't scold. Mirrors. He responds with calm presence, not confrontation. He waits. He watches. He notices how the mask starts to slip the moment pressure disappears. In everyday life, this shows up too. Imagine you're in a store. The cashier is cold, short, almost rude. Most people would snap back, but you slow down. You smile. You say, "Rough day?" Suddenly, her entire demeanor changes. She softens. Just like many women's attitudes aren't really about you, they're about their inner battles. Same thing at a family dinner. It stings. It feels unfair. But later you find out he's been laid off. He hasn't told anyone. His pride wasn't confidence. It was a shield, a silent defense against vulnerability, a way to stay in control without revealing anything soft underneath. And here's the twist. If you had reacted with ego matching, her pride with your own you would have missed the deeper truth hiding just beneath the surface. Here's the move that separates pawns from players, the amateurs from the truly strategic. Don't fix pride. Don't fight it. Don't try to break it open. Mirror it. Reflect it. Let her feel seen, not judged. Ask subtle, gentle questions. Create emotional safety without offering forced solutions. Instead, let space do the work. And then, watch if her pride begins to drop. Even just a little if, you notice softness replacing sarcasm or openness behind her guarded tone that's real. That's a signal. She's not performing anymore. She's revealing. But if the mask stays firm, if the walls don't move an inch, you withdraw your energy quietly, fully. Who stays calm, rooted, unaffected, he doesn't just become attractive. Why? Because the moment a woman fully understands you when she thinks she's mapped out your emotions, your next move, your thought patterns, she starts managing you. It's not always malicious. It's instinctual. Predictability makes her feel safe. Safety alone does not create passion. It does not sustain desire. Mystery does. Mystery creates something else entirely. Anticipation, intrigue, respect. She begins to wonder, to imagine, to lean in. You're no longer just seen, you're studied. And in that tension, attraction quietly grows. Machiavelli never wrote about dating, but his words echo perfectly here. He warned, "Men in general judge more by the sense of sight than by the sense of touch. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. That people see enough to believe, but never enough to control." That's the key. Especially in relationships where perception can become power or prison. If she always knows how you'll react, what you'll say, when you'll text, then tension, the very energy that fuels attraction fades. You always text first. You're always explaining how you feel. You always give her full access to your mind, your time, your emotional dashboard. At first, she's drawn in by the attention. Then she expects it. And then inevitably, she gets bored. Why? Because nothing about you feels earned anymore. No depth left to explore, but the man who moves with intention, who chooses his moments and reveals only what's necessary. He doesn't have to chase attention. He holds it effortlessly, not by being cold, not by playing games, but by staying grounded, by keeping parts of himself unspoken, deep, unreadable. Picture this. You walk into a gathering. Everyone's eager to talk, sharing wins, voicing loud. Opinions filling the room with noise. But because your silence creates questions, who is this guy? That curiosity becomes your quiet aura. The same principle applies at work. You don't advertise every task. You don't over-explain every thought. You let results do the talking. And because your next move can't be easily predicted, stop revealing everything. Speak less than you know. Feel more than you express. Move with power, not urgency. He becomes manageable. But when he moves like a mystery, calmly, intentionally, quietly powerful, he becomes unforgettable. And that is the true essence of masculine dominance. If you've made it here, you've already done what most men avoid. You've looked into the mirror. You've stepped away from comfort and leaned into truth. You've chosen something rare, self-respect, without conditions. Most men live on emotional autopilot. They chase validation and resent the very thing they pursued. Women who control them. They chase women who confuse intensity for intimacy, chaos for connection, and obedience for love. These men end up in cycles of emotional confusion, believing that if they just comply more, give more, or bend further, they'll finally be loved. But they don't realize the painful truth. They're trapped not in love, but in performance. But you're building something entirely different. Not noise, not neediness, but presence, calm, grounded, and unmistakably strong. The kind of presence that speaks without shouting, that stands firm without demanding. These Machiavellian rules weren't created to make you colder. They were created to make you clearer. They exist to help you see beyond charming words and seductive masks, to keep your soul from being molded by someone else's fantasy of who they want you to be. Because let's face it, most heartbreak doesn't stem from rejection of a version of yourself that was never real. It hurts not because you weren't loved, but because you were loved for pretending. But when you choose to live by design, not by emotional reaction, everything shifts. Your silence becomes strategy, your boundaries become steel, and your love, it becomes a conscious gift knot, a leash tied to fear or insecurity. From this moment forward, there's no need to explain yourself to be understood. You refine yourself in silence. You no longer fight to prove your worth because your worth speaks for itself. You become the kind of man whose energy commands rather than pleads. You lead conversations with calm influence, not by dominating. You inspire attraction without needing to perform. You reveal strength not through how loud you speak, but through what you refuse to tolerate. If you've made it here, you've already done what most men avoid. You've stood in front of the mirror and didn't look away. You've stepped away from the warmth of comfort and walked into the fire of truth. In a world that teaches men to earn love by shrinking, apologizing, and constantly performing, you've chosen something rare, self-respect without conditions. Most men live on emotional autopilot, constantly chasing external validation, and then resenting the very women they handed their power to. They confuse intensity for intimacy. They confuse chaos for connection. They confuse obedience for love. But you're building something else. Not noise, not neediness, but presence, grounded, undeniable. These Machiavellian rules weren't crafted to make you colder or distant. They were built to sharpen your vision, to help you pierce through the charming smiles that manipulate, to guard your spirit from being reshaped by someone else's illusion of who you should be. This is how kings are made, not in palaces, not in spotlight or applause, but in the silent, private moments of self-mastery. So keep building. Keep choosing alignment over approval, even when it's hard. Keep protecting your inner peace as if it were a kingdom under siege, because it is. And the man who walks through life with clarity doesn't chase, he attracts. What he attracts doesn't just follow, it respects him. In a world full of noise, the calm man becomes magnetic. It's a world full of masks, the man who stands Firm in his truth becomes unforgettable. Stay calm. Stay strategic. Stay sovereign. And always remember, you're not here to be loved for a mask. You're here to be respected for your truth now. One final message for the few who are truly ready to shift the direction of their lives. For the men who are prepared to detach from the emotional autopilot of the 99% and play a different game, something is coming. Something I've been building in silence. Something designed to shift how women perceive you, and more importantly, how you perceive yourself. It's coming soon. So stay tuned, and if this message stirred something in you, don't let it fade away in silence. Write a comment, Evan, just a few words. It helps lock the message into your mind. It might light a spark for someone else who needs it too. If you enjoyed this, hit the like button and share it with someone who, in your eyes, could use this message right now. Trust your instinct. We're all walking the same path, trying to get clearer, stronger, more solid on the inside. So let's keep building minds that don't break.